Hi and welcome back. In this video, which is the second video of the series Collections and Dictionaries, I will speak about dictionary. In the last video which I posted on Thursday, I spoke about collections. So if you're not aware what a collection is, I recommend watching that video first. So, dictionary is like a collection. In fact, Microsoft defines it as an equivalent of a Perl associative array. I'm not going to cover associative arrays in this video. I will reserve it for one of my future videos where I will cover it in detail. So, a dictionary is like a collection which gives you or provides you a very convenient way to deal with related group of items as a single object. And probably this is the reason why it becomes very much easier to work with these related group of objects. So, let's begin. We will now launch the Visual Basic Editor. If you're not sure what Visual Basic Editor is, then I recommend watching the video Visual Basic Editor and Introduction. We will press the shortcut key Alt F11 to launch the Visual Basic Editor. Once the Visual Basic Editor is launched, right-click on the VBA project and under Insert, click on Module to insert a module. I'm going to declare a procedure called subdictionary_example. In this example, we will early bind with Microsoft Scripting Runtime Object Library to work with the dictionary. I will explain about early binding and late binding in one of my future videos. For early binding, click on Tools and then click on References. Scroll down the list till the time you see Microsoft Scripting Runtime Object Library. Check the checkbox next to it and then click on OK to set the reference to the Microsoft Scripting Runtime Object Library. We will take the same example that we took in the previous video. We will create a dictionary to store employee details. So let's go ahead and declare our dictionary object. Dim employees as scripting.dictionary. Now let's initialize the dictionary. So we will use set employees is equal to new scripting.dictionary and we are done. In the collections video, I mentioned that you can declare and initialize a collection in 2 lines, or you can also do that in 1 line by mentioning the new keyword in the first line. Similarly, you can do that here as well by typing the new keyword before the scripting.dictionary and you can get rid of the second line. Now let's go ahead and add items to the dictionary. But before we do that, let's understand the syntax to add an item. The syntax is object.add key, item. The object is the name of a dictionary object. For example, here we have employees. The key is a unique expression that specifies a key string that can be used. It is the key associated with the item being added. An item is an expression of any type that specifies the member to add to the collection. It is the item associated with the key being added. Now let's add few employee names to this dictionary. You can simply do that by typing the name of the dictionary and then pressing the period and then typing add. If you remember in collections video, you added an item first and then added a key. Also, adding a key was optional there. Here, both are mandatory, the item and the key. Also, you have to add the key first and then add the item. Since the key is unique, we will use employee ID as the key to add to dictionary. So let's add 3 employee details to dictionary. The first one is employees.add. Let's say the employee ID is 10001, Siddharth. Similarly, we will add the second employee, employees.add 10002, John Doe. Employees.add 10003, Jane Doe. And we are done. Here as well, it is pretty easy to add items to the dictionary just like we did for collections. Now let's check the number of items in the dictionary. How many items are there in this dictionary? Just like in collections, we can use .count here as well. So I will type MSG box employees.count. Let's run this. Click on the Run Sub User Forms button or simply press the shortcut key F5. When I run this, it gives me the count of items in the collection. To access the items in a dictionary, you can use any of the 5 loops as shown in the video understanding 5 loops in Microsoft Excel 365 for Windows. For this example, we will use the for each loop. I'm going to declare a variable called keys, dim keys as variant, and then I will write my for each loop. For each keys in employees dot keys next keys. And here I'm going to use a message box to not only show the key that we are going to use, but also retrieve the employee name using that key. So I will type msg box employee ID is equal to ampersand keys ampersand, and then I will use the line continuation character, and employee name is equal to ampersand. To retrieve the name of the employee, you have to type the dictionary name and then you have to pass the key, and we are done. Let's run this. And I get employee ID is equal to 10001 and employee name is equal to Siddharth. If you click on OK, it will give you the second employee name, and if you click OK again, it will give you the third employee name. So this is how you can access the items in a dictionary using a loop. You can also find an item using the index number. One important thing, dictionaries are zero based, which means the first position is 0. If you're not aware what 0 based and 1 based means, then do see the video VBA array in Microsoft Excel 365 for Windows. To access the item in a dictionary, you have to use .items. Let's copy this code to a new module and we will test it there. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to insert a new module and I'm going to paste it here. Here I'm going to change the procedure name to dictionary index example, and I'm going to delete this. And I will type msg box employees dot items and then 0 to access the first item. So when I run this, see what I get, Siddharth. Similarly, if I want the second item, then I will type 1, and if I run this, I get John Doe. So we saw how to access an item using the index number or the keys. Now I will show you how to update an item in a dictionary. Now if you remember, in the collections video I had mentioned that you cannot update the value once it is added. You have to remove the value and then re-add it. Fortunately, in dictionary it becomes very easy to update an item. Let's take an example. Let's say I want to update the value of John Doe to Mr. John Doe. You can do that by typing employees and then the key and then assigning a new value to it. So you can say Mr. John Doe. So if you copy this here again and if you run this, you will notice that the value has been updated. So till now we have seen how to add an item and how to access the item either using the index number or the keys in a for each loop. Moving on to the next item. Unlike collections where key is a unique string expression, the key in the dictionary can be a number as well. Now let's assume that the employee ID is alphanumeric. That means it's a mix of alphabet and numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add capital C and capital O, which is a, let's say, short form of company. You can add anything else if you want. So CO 10001. Similarly, I'll add CO here as well and here as well. Since this is a string, this has to be in quotes. I'm going to use the same keys variable. So I will type dim keys as variant. And then I will set the value of keys to keys is equal to, let's say I copy this particular key. And then I will use the message box to retrieve the value. So I'm going to copy it from module 1, which is this particular line, and I'll paste it here. So I'll say message box employee ID is equal to keys and employee name is equal to employees and keys. So when I run this, I should get John Doe. And I get John Doe. Now let me share something which is very interesting and important. The dictionary has a compare mode property which can be used to determine if the case of the key matters. And this is the reason why I chose to change my employee ID to alphanumeric. The syntax of compare mode property is object.compareMode is equal to compare. The compare mode property has the following parts. the object, which is the name of the dictionary object, which is employees in our case. The compare is optional. If provided, compare is a value representing the comparison mode used by the function such as strcomp. I will cover this strcomp in one of my future videos. The compare argument can have the following values. VB use compare option. The value of this constant is -1. It performs a comparison by using the settings of option compare statement. The second option is VB binary compare. The value of that is 0 and this performs a binary comparison. The next one is VB text compare. The value of that is 1 and it performs a textual comparison. If you're early binding like we are doing it here, then you will be given an option text compare and not VB text compare, as text compare is a member of scripting runtime library. When you're late binding, then you cannot use text compare. You'll have to use VB text compare. Both have the same value, which is 1. So in early binding, you can either use text compare or VB text compare or simply 1. And in late binding, you can either use VB text compare or simply 1. The next value the compare argument can have is VB database compare. The value of this is 2. This is for Microsoft Access only. This performs a comparison based on information in your database. We will not cover this here. By default, the compare mode is VB binary compare, which means capitalized or uppercase CO is different than lowercase co. So the keys are not case sensitive. So if you try to add a second set of keys, employee ID in this case, which is the same as a previous key, then the code will let you add it. Let's test this. I'm going to change the second one to lowercase co and I'll make this 1. And to retrieve the value, I will copy this here and I will paste it here. So when you run this, it gives you John Doe and not Siddharth, even though they look similar. Also, the code let you add this key, which is similar looking to the first key. Now one more thing. What if I make this capital C? So this is different than this and this is different than these two. So when you run this, see what happens. You get employee ID and the one which we set, but we did not get any employee name. And that is because we do not have an employee with this employee ID where the C is capitalized and O is in lowercase. And hence, to ensure that we do not have this problem, we will set the compare mode property to VB text compare, or rather text compare. Also one more thing, the comparison mode of a dictionary object has to be changed when it has no data. That is right before the .add. And if you try to do that later, which is after .add, then you will get an error. So let's test this. We will try and change the compare mode property after the data has been added. So I will type employees dot compare mode is equal to text compare. Now let's run this. And we get invalid procedure call or argument, runtime error 5. And if you click on debug, it highlights this line. And this is because we are trying to change the compare mode after adding this data. So what we have to do is we have to move this line before we add the data, and then it will work. And now when you run this, see what happens. I get this key is already associated with an element of this collection. And if you click on debug, it will highlight this line. So it will not let you add a similar key. So when you do a text compare, then capital CO, uppercase CO is the same as lowercase co, or it is the same as a mixed case CO, a sentence case. So depending upon your requirement, if you want the keys to be case sensitive, you can set the option to text compare. Otherwise, remove that line. By default, the compare mode is VB binary compare. Okay, moving on. Now let's understand how to remove an item from a dictionary. To remove a key value pair, you can use dictionary name and then period and then remove, followed by the key name. Let's modify the code below to understand this. So I will change this to 2 again, and then I will copy this and I will paste it here as well. Now I'm going to use 2 message boxes to show how this works. The first one is there are ampersand employees.count ampersand, and then I'll use a line continuation character and I'll press the enter key. Employees and employee ID is equal to ampersand keys. This is fine. And employee name is equal to employee keys. So this message box is fine. Now what I will do is I will remove the key. So I will type employees.remove and I'll copy this from here and paste it here. And I'll press the enter key. And I'm going to copy the same message box again and I will paste it here. And I'll see if it makes any difference. Let's run this. So the first message box I get is there are 3 employees and employee ID is equal to CO100002 and employee name is John Doe. When I click on OK, this particular key will remove the key value pair from the dictionary and my total employee count should reduce to 2. So let's click on OK. And I get there are 2 employees, which is correct because I removed one of them. And the employee ID CO100000 and employee name is equal to blank because it could not find that particular employee ID, that particular key. So I'll click on OK. So here we saw that to remove an item you can use .remove. One thing you also noticed here is that when there is no key, the code doesn't error out like it did in collections. So to prevent that, what you can do is you can check if a key exists in a dictionary or not and then try and retrieve the value. Here checking if a key exists or not is very easy as compared to collections. If you remember, we had to write a function to check if the key existed in the collection. Here, all you have to do is use .exist. Let's understand this using an example. So I'll delete this message box. We don't need this. I'm going to make this code a little concise. Okay, so now we have removed the employee and I will add an if then else statement. If employees.exists and the key, which is KYS, is equal to true, then show me this message box. If the key does not exist, then show me another message box, which is, I'm going to modify this message box and I will change this to does not exist. So when you run this, see what happens. There are 2 employees and employee ID CO100002 does not exist. You can also use .exist to create a unique dictionary. Let's take the same example that we did in the case of collections. I have some data saved in sheet 2. Let's check that out. So if you notice, column A has employee ID and column B has employee name. And there are duplicates in this data. To create a unique dictionary, this is what I will do. I will delete this because we will add this in a loop now. I will declare my worksheet object, dim ws as worksheet, and I will initialize this worksheet object. Set ws is equal to this workbook dot sheets sheet 2. These 2 remains the same. Let's declare a variable for our counter, dim I as long, and then we will write a for statement. For I is equal to, now if you will go back to the worksheet, you will note that the data starts from the 2nd row and it ends in 13th row. So let's go back to the code and I will type for I is equal to 2 to 13 and then next I. The first step is I will check whether a particular employee ID, which is the key, exists in the dictionary or not. And if it exists, I will not add it. And if it doesn't exist, then I will add it. So I can do that by typing if employees.exist ws.cells i,1.value 2 is equal to false, then end if. What I'm doing here is I'm checking if that employee ID exists or not. And if it is false, that means it doesn't exist, then I will add it. So employees.add, I'm going to copy the same thing because that is going to be my key, comma, the item, which is the employee name, it is in column 2. So I will change this to 2. And then I will type MSG box employees dot count to return the total item count. I will keep this variable as it is because I will use the for each loop to check if the items were added correctly or not. So I can delete this. I can delete this as well. And then I will go back to the first module and I'll copy this code from here. And I will replace this entire code. Let's run this. And I get the total count is 3, which is fine because there are 3 unique names, John Doe, Sid Rout and Jane Doe. So I click on OK. And then it will loop through all the 3 names and give me those names. So I hope you have understood how to work with dictionaries. Now you may have a question. Which should I use? Should I use a collection or should I use a dictionary? This depends on so many things. Let's look at this table to understand the difference, which will help you decide which one to use. Collection is native to Visual Basic for applications. Here, no reference is required as you saw in the previous video. Dictionary, on the other hand, requires a reference to Microsoft Scripting Runtime. And because of this, you can work with dictionaries in VB script, where you cannot use collections. In collection, case sensitivity is optional. Here, in dictionary, it is not optional. We have to set it. In collections, the keys are optional. In dictionary, keys are mandatory. In collection, keys must be unique strings. In dictionary, keys can have any type except arrays. In collection, you cannot change keys and items. You have to remove the item and then add it again. In dictionary, it is easy to update. Collection doesn't have a native way to check if keys exist. You can use .exist in dictionary to check if any key exists. Collection unfortunately does not have .removeAll to remove all items. You can use .removeAll in a dictionary. There are so many other differences. For example, the key order when it comes to sorting a collection or a dictionary. But we will not go into that at this point of time. We will cover all those in a future video. As of now, these are the important differences which will help you decide which one to choose from. Time for a quick recap. In this video, we understood what a dictionary object is. We also learned that to work with a dictionary object, we need to set a reference to Microsoft Scripting Runtime library. We also learned how to add an item to the dictionary, and to access that item, can we use the index or the keys. We also learned about the CompareMode method, which forces the keys to be case sensitive or case insensitive. We also learned about how to remove an item from the dictionary using .remove, or to clear the entire dictionary, that is to remove all the items from the dictionary using .removeAll. And finally, we learned about the differences between the collection and the dictionary. If you still have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can also email me on support@tamexcel.com and I will get back to you within 48 hours. Just a quick reminder, I will be posting 2 videos every week, one on Monday and the other on Thursday. If you feel like extending support to this channel, or if you actually want to learn Visual Basic programming from scratch, I recommend watching the playlist from video 1 till the video last, because I have put those videos in a particular sequence. Yeah, drop a couple of likes if you can do that. And if you still have not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and subscribe to this channel by clicking on the bell icon. And I will see you on Thursday when I talk to you about error handling and debugging the code in Microsoft Excel 365 for Windows.